ensure long-term that we have adequate truck parking. Historically, for many, many years, these buildings have only been used by a single tenant. For probably 25 or 30 years, it was actually Liddy Glass was in both of them. And then for 5 to 7 years, Tango Trucking used them as a paper recycling facility. We're now looking to use them for multi-tenants, and to do that, additional trucking as well as maneuvering room in particular is necessary. And in particular, if we do get the opportunity to rebuild the building into a modern warehouse, the additional trucking court would just absolutely be necessary. So these two buildings are part of the original portion of Slack Industrial Park, which was originally built in 1950. These buildings were. They're shown on the handout as 1 and 2, as I said. And if you see on the back of the brochure, we've actually renovated the buildings. A local tenant, Custom Retail, relocated from part of the park. You can see we have some vacancy in some of the smaller buildings, and they occupy now on a consolidated basis half of one of these buildings. And so this ground lease is merely to allow us the ability to further, lease these buildings long term. They lack, as they're currently configured, the trucking court, which really creates physical obsolescence in the building. And so we're really just trying to protect and use, the land and the buildings long term in the best manner possible, and offer, tenants more flexibility in their trucking. That's really all I've got. If you have any questions about the park or about the development, feel free.
Any questions? Mr. Attorney, you have a question? Yes.
It was more of a point of information for the council. As he indicated, the city has been in a long-standing lease with Module X Solutions that is owned and operated by Mr. Steve Schoonover, who recently passed away. In that lease was the property that Mr. Seeley referenced. I assume that, Mr. Schoonover could have very well subleased his property and allowed the city to miss out on revenue. But what we agreed to do just before the end of last year, beginning of this new year, we revised Mr. Schoonover's lease, not changing anything, including rents due and things like that. The only change that was made was making it less the property that Seeley Slack is interested in leasing from the city. From there, Mr. Schoonover agreed and signed his basically reformatted lease, less that property. Now what Seeley is wanting to do is a brand new lease, which is why that is before the council for adoption via ordinance. And this allows for the city to get in additional revenue for that smaller parcel of land that they're interested in developing. Just wanted to make sure I make that clear for everybody.
Exactly correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a comment.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Sibley, thank you for all the business stuff you do in the community, the economic development. You remain committed to this community. And it took a while, but it was a pleasure to work with your company, Mrs. Schoonover, as well. And I want to commend our city attorney. They worked for months to get that lease done. And she's done a bunch of long-term contracts at this point, and the city has greatly benefited. So thank you for what you do, and Attorney Creel, thank you for what you do as well.
On a side note, I'll come back and talk about ground leases in general. We have a lot of experience with industrial warehouses around the country on city ground leases, so I have quite a bit of knowledge about that, and Shreveport is somewhat different than all of the cities that we have done this in. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other council members? Okay, Mayor?
I don't typically do remarks until tomorrow at the council meetings. The only thing I want to put out, we did a press conference on the coronavirus last week, also known as COVID-19, where we reported that there were no cases in Louisiana. Well, that status changed today. They found the first case of coronavirus in Jefferson Parish, so that was confirmed. We don't have any additional information right now from the CDC, but we do know that the governor will be doing a live press conference at 5 o'clock today. So I encourage all the citizens to tune into that press conference so we can get any additional guidance from the state. But as far as all the other information we put out, how to protect yourself from it, how to protect your loved ones from it, best practices with washing hands, not touching your face, all that still applies. So I just wanted to put that out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll move to reports this time. It was called to my attention, Mayor, last time we had a proper standard by a couple of employees, which was okay. They want to know why in the council that we just call up proper standards and not the other departments. And I don't have an answer for that, but that's just the way the format's always been.
I was about to say, Mr. Chairman, this is y'all meeting, I just do what you tell me, so.
I understand, but I'm just telling you, we're not singling out property standards.
Okay.
Because, that's just the way the format was.
Mhm.
And so, if we had, others here, we always ask Public Works, different. So property standards is not that we're singling you out, this is just the time that we have set here to ask questions. So at this time, we'll recognize Mr. Green, if anyone has anything. If not, Mr. Green, we appreciate, I'm sorry. We're all good here.
Thank you for picking up the phone on a Saturday. It was because you didn't recognize the number there. I appreciate that.
I think with Mr. Green, though, he probably don't want to be called up either, so we can save him in time, and also if Barbara or Mr. Patrick, but I don't want to come up either, so.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I assumed it was for some historical reason that y'all called property standards, and I just took it as it was. If y'all want to create a format to where
Resolution that stated,
you don't.
okay, no, there was a resolution that stated that, so that's, okay. Just making sure.
Resolution
Good.
Okay, all right.
2003.
Since 2003, so.
The comedy report.
You're still on board.
Anybody have questions?
Would you, we spoke over the weekend, are you comfortable speaking about our relationship with the small dollar store type format stores and the property standards issues there?
Trash is an issue. Most of the times, they really need to put their dumpsters inside of something so that the trash doesn't flow out into the parking lot, and the neighboring yards and whatnot, communities. So, but usually I just call it into us because they're regulars.
Okay, no other questions? Thank you, Mr. Green.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question in regards to property standards, not necessarily for you, Mr. Green. The environmental court, we discussed that in our property standards meeting. Mayor, how close are you to appointing a hearing officer on that?
We're really close. We actually spoke about it in a staff meeting this morning. Yeah, we're really close. We'll put legislation up by next meeting. I think one part of the legislation has to be a 2-reader, but at the next city council meeting, we'll have legislation before we assign the environmental court administrator.
So you're looking at probably, I think we had discussed in our property standards meeting by April, end of April, having that person in there, and then probably we could start. Because I think what's happening from what Mr. Green has said, that we're kind of starting to backlog on some of these appeals and really can't do anything. So, do you think by June we will have the court in place probably?
Yeah, hopefully before that.
Okay.
Yeah, like the 2-reader is gonna be the appointment of who we put forth, but, we've still been ironing out some things within the ordinance that we put forth, so we'll put forward some amendments to, what we've already talked about, and we'll put forth a name for who will run the court, and that'll be the 2-reader.
Okay, thank you.
And we absolutely sure if there's no judge that we can get a sitting judge to look at those cases or anything like that, that wasn't an option, right?
Well, they went to Monroe to look at the court in Monroe, and that wasn't the position that they came back to us with, so.
And basically, the way the ordinance is written, it goes to an appeal, which is the hearing officer, so we have to have the hearing officer in place. So really, any appeals that we've got sitting out there before Mr. Green can do anything with a dilapidated property, it has to go through the appeal process, but we don't have that mechanism in place yet. So,
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jones, so we'll Got that this morning. Ms. Creel?
Yes, sir, I emailed that prior to today's meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, public hearing. Tomorrow we are required to hold several public hearings on resolution number 29 of 2020.
I did want to point out a change on the fact sheet, for the public hearing. The city of Shreveport ad valorem taxes were left off the original fact sheet, so that has been corrected. And the amount of abatement for city of Shreveport ad valorem taxes is $24,709.56 per year for 5 years. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys earlier.
Okay. Ms. Jones? Being legislation and on.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, we have the following requests to speak, and the vice chair, council lady, will handle the time.
When you're called, please give your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Patrick Hall. Corey Moore.
How y'all doing? With respect to the city council and to the mayor, I would like to speak on the opposition of the building of the apartment complex they're building on the Cooper Road. My concern is as a citizen, taxpayer citizen, it was under my knowledge that this company was being tax
Sir,
exempt.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need you to give your, I'd like to start your time, I need you to give your name and address.
Oh, my name is Corey Moore. I stay at 1923 Hayden Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107. So I was just speaking on the tax issue. All of us as citizens pay tax in the city of Shreveport and on the parish. So, by this company being tax exempt, which I wanna know what would be the benefit from the city and the parish with this company being tax exempt, what would you all benefit from this company building if they not required to pay any taxes at all? So that's my question to the council. What's the benefit of the city of Shreveport and the parish of Caddo, they not required to pay any taxes, being tax exempt? So what would be the benefit of those them buildings in our community without paying any taxes? To the city and the parish.
Is that something that you all wanna, answer now, or as we keep on going, then someone has to decide this?
It's up to you guys. I don't know anything about them being tax exempt, so I don't have the background information on that, but this is the first that I've heard of.
Yes, ma'am, I was told, I was informed by, Detective Glover that they were being tax exempt because of the law Trump passed. That, exempting the wealthy, are not paying taxes. So they are totally tax exempt from building. So how would the city and the parish benefit from them building and they not required to pay any taxes? I had to pay taxes on my property that I was ready for my property to be taken because I was late on my taxes. And all of us as citizens pay taxes every year. So how can this company come in and build with being tax exempt?
I don't have that information.
Mr. Chairman, do you want Bonnie Moore to come up and address this question?
Yes.
But they gonna get profits off the rent every month.
Let's let Ms.
On all
Moore
them bills.
answer that question.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Fuck them.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure if we're talking about the same project. If he's talking about the restoration tax abatement or the housing development in the MLK.
Lonnie,
Who are you?
they having a hard time hearing.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Who are you?
I said, I am not sure if he's talking about the restoration tax abatement or the MLK property. Okay, that's not me.
I think that's what the city attorney was just saying, that this was the first time that we're hearing that there was any abatement for that project.
I don't want any accusations or comments based on
$1 million project, and if the city and the parish is not gonna gain anything from them building without them paying taxes, why would they be allowed? If the city is not benefiting, if the parish is not benefiting, so how would the community benefit? And they not required to pay any tax, and they are tax exempt.
I'm not aware that I'm not expert either.
Well, Cedric Glover gave me the information that I was
But they get rent money every month
Well,
for 167
I'm just
units.
saying, first of all, that we're gonna sell them water, they got sewer service, and if it develops like, the builders have said, and they gonna pay taxes. I don't know anybody that's exempt from parish or city taxes.
Well, I was misinformed then.
Yes, I don't wanna say you misinformed, but I'm just saying, to try to give you an answer, is I don't see where, the opportunity zone is something that's nationwide.
Right.
And that's to get people to come in and build, in certain areas of the country. But I understand, and that's people like, Raymond James, these big Wall Street investors, they give them money because it's in the opportunity zones. But as far as the local taxes, I don't think there's anybody.
They have to pay the property tax. That's
Well,
it.
how much time I have, sister? A minute, 20 seconds. So with them being developers, as us being, property owners on the Cooper Road, this should be opened up a door for us that own property. So I have, behind my shop, a shape-back barbecue building next to Miss Ross is on, I have a certain amount of lot. I wanna build a 4-duplex apartment complex. I mean, how can I go about receiving funds?
Bro.
To do the same thing they are doing, which I have been given knowledge of in the last meeting about so-called hidden money that's hidden, is allocated funds to benefit us in that area so we can develop businesses, further our businesses that we already have established.
Mr. Boyd, your question, your statement is very serious.
Yes, sir.
What I would suggest, to give you a logical answer, in that case, if you want to build that, you would need to talk to Ms. Moore over there to see if community development has any kind of program. So, I mean, it's a serious question and a serious answer. But as far as the opportunity, that was done in Washington, D.C., and we have no jurisdiction in that.
I understand, I respect that, sir, and I thank you for your answer. I thank y'all for listening to me. Thank you.
Craig Lee.
Craig Lee, 1112 Prospect
Let the bullshit begin.
Shreveport, Louisiana. It's painful to listen to, and this brother means well. Cedric Glover has initiated a lot of lies. And one lie, we just heard that there's no taxes that's going to be charged. Any entity who acquires property, whether it's commercial or residential in the city of Shreveport, is going to have to pay property tax. First and foremost, I'm 100% in favor of this particular development. And so let me assist you a little bit, Mr. Flurry. We get a lot of complaints about how to go about doing development in the inner core, whether it be
Watch how
Allendale,
hard in the
Lakeside,
paint I
Cook
go against
Road,
this nigga here.
Queensboro, whatever. This
Watch
is
how
what
hard in
we
the
have
paint
to
I
say.
go against this nigga.
So
Nigga, you not
under
even from the
this
Cooper
particular
Road. What do you stand to
administration,
benefit?
have been created
Pussy
to allow
ass.
people who have a lot of money, incentive to now come in. The tax, quote unquote, break that they're getting is on capital gains tax. Well, if you're not investing in Wall Street and making a lot of money, you ain't got nothing to do with capital gains. This is pretty
So
simple.
you saying that you
So
only
at
give a
the
fuck
end of
about
the day,
corporations
this is
and not
how
our
you get
neighborhood?
people who have
You
money
ain't even from the
who
Cooper
don't
Road, man.
want
Who
to
the hell you
invest
think
in
you...
Allendale,
Anyway.
Lakeside, Cook Road, and it's
You not from the Cooper Road.
That's number one. There's no one size fits all for housing. You need rentals, and you also need rental investors. There is no such thing as home ownership in America. I want to be very clear. Why? Because you must always pay what, Mr. Butcher? Taxes. And what happens, Mr. Butcher, if you don't pay property taxes? Even if you paid off your mortgage, what happens?
You pay, you stay, you don't, you go.
Thank you very much. So you never own property in America. You can invest in real estate or you can rent real estate. In the Cooper Road, Miss Marion just got through telling you, we're dealing with a situation where the residents are 60% in poverty. And that is
You don't even live up there, man.
Throughout this entire city, the Alice report had already indicated
Pussy ass
that,
nigga.
and we have this situation. Over 60% of the residents in this city cannot afford rent. I've done 2 projects, and I'm working on one right now on Lisa Lane, where we've acquired.
Well, white
through
boys
a
working for you.
foreclosure, $32,000 foreclosure. We're putting $35,000, $45,000
Pussy
in
ass
it.
dude.
After we finish, the property will be worth $140,000. I've done one also on Houston Street in the Fairfield Historic District where I own property. I did the first 203K rehab loan. Unfortunately, Cedric Lover is spreading a lot of disinformation to good people who don't even understand this process, and it's very sad because here's a hometown person who now is trying to bring affordable housing
Really,
to this
nigga?
area to stimulate other people in the city. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Craig, Mr. Lee, sorry. Mr. Lee, you remember when I first.
Pussy ass homo somewhere.
Talked about sports figures that came back to Shreveport and made good on once they became.
Yes.
I remember you speaking, well, is this not similar to that?
This is the same type of situation. We're in a situation, Councilman Fleury, when you have somebody, as a matter of fact, Anthony Williams is 1981 graduate of Green Oaks. He and my cousin Tommy Jones graduated together. He's one of the most brilliant engineers in the world. He's from the Cooper Road. Now, Tommy has not invested in the Cooper Road just yet. I was just in Dallas, Texas in June. Miss Yolanda Taylor, her and her husband sitting on about $1 billion. They're in Dallas. They're from the Cooper Road. She's from the Cooper Road. He's from Africa. This is an opportunity where his brother, who is now taking an opportunity to invest, may stimulate Yolanda, Tommy, and other people.
Give me a second, man.
Now come and